I see everything you're doing on my phone. I'm gonna start the webinar.
I just started.
Heard you got that deep for me. Real love is deep for me. I'ma make you go weak for me. Make you wait a whole week for me. I see you watching, fiending. I know you want it, scheming. I know you need it, trouble, Lord. You want it all, you don't. I know you need love. I need some too. Do you want this like it wants you? Know that booty gon' do what it want to. Can't hit it one time, multiple. I know you see this red Rex on me. Now come and get high. 20, 40, 80 out the trap. Hit it with the rap, put it on the map. Then we right back. Call me when you wanna get high. 20 Montana with the racks. I be P on my bag, double G's on my dash. Nigga, I'm bad. I'm bad. When you wanna get, well, you can't get no higher than this. No, 'cause love don't get no higher than this. No. Grind, boy, you know I grind. When I pull up these jeans, you're mine. You're mine. When I step on the scene, they can't wait to back it up. Your ex still a dope, but it ain't crack enough. I'm supplying my man, I'm in demand. Soon as I land, just know I roll with them goons. In case you start acting familiar, this kind of love, big business, whole slab. But you can't get no higher than this. No, 'cause love don't get no higher than this. No. Grind, boy, you know I grind. When I pull up the jeans, you're mine. You're mine. When I step on the scene, they can't wait to back it up. Your ex still a dope, but it ain't crack enough.
I'm doing 3.
I'm supplying my man, I'm in demand. Soon as I land, just know I roll with them goons. In case you start acting familiar, this kind of love, big business, whole slab I kill for. Know that booty gon' do what it want to. Can't hit it one time, multiple. I know you see this red Rex on me. Now come and get high. 20, 40, 80 out the trap. Hit it with the rap, put it on the map. Then we right back. Call me when you wanna get high. 20 Montana with the racks, double C's on my bag, double G's on my dash. Nigga, I'm bad. I'm bad. When you wanna get high.
Right here, what we're gonna do is go back.
Way back, yeah. Way back. Oh, way back, yeah. I met him when I was a little girl. He gave
to the beat, y'all, and you don't stop. A freak.
Or could it be that it was all just so simple then? A teenage love, but you say he's just a friend. He moved around and we kept in touch through his friend Mike. The world was young and we knew we couldn't rush, but whenever I got lonely or needed some advice, he gave me his shoulder. His words were very nice, but that is all behind me, 'cause now there is no other. My love is his and his is mine. My friend, love of my life. You are my friend, love of my life. I can't dip in. Love of my life. You are my friend. Love of my life. No one can defeat you. Love of my life. Without you, baby, feels like I sampled true love. Yeah, but she didn't clear.
Y'all know how I met her. We broke up and got back together. To get her back, I had to sweat her. Thought she rolled with bad boys forever. In many ways, them boys made her better. To grow, I had to let her. She needed cheddar and I understood that. Looking for cheese that don't make her a hood rat. In fact, she's a queen to me. Her light beams on me. I love it when she sings to me. It's like that.
You know you rock my world, and you be boy and I'll be girl, and it don't stop till the break of dawn. You know you rock my world, and you be boy and I'll be
Put on your mittens and your coat.
Go out and rock the boat!
Get there by car or bus or boat.
Democracy in the house, in the city.
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Look how I'm living now. Police be tripping now. Yeah, this is America. Guns in my area. I got the strap. I gotta carry 'em. Yeah, I'ma go into this. Yeah, this is gorilla. Yeah, I'ma go get the bag. Yeah, or I'ma get the pad. Yeah, I'm so cold like yeah. I'm so dull like yeah. We gon' blow like yeah. Look how I'm kicking up. I'm so fitted. I'm on Gucci. I'm so pretty. Yeah. I'm gon' get it. Watch me move. This is Sally. Kodak. Ooh, black. Ooh, know that. Ooh, get it. Ooh, work it. 100 bands, 100 bands, 100 bands. Contraband, contraband, contraband. I got the plug on who a hawker. Whoa, they gonna find you like Baca. Blah.
Monsieur Citizen,
Monsieur, what is this?
purging eligible voters?
They're up to old tricks, changing all of the requirements for voter ID. Vote Riders, they'll help you for free.
So what happens when we vote?
But without a doubt, the black turnout is momentous, especially in the South.
Spread the word and drive your friends.
Rock the vote, then see 6 million new black voters coming from Gen Z. Let's go!
My vote. I am not throwing away my vote. Cause I improve my mobility through eligibility. I'm not throwing away my vote. I am not throwing away my vote. It's a party at the polls.
I don't care who you are or where you work. Get your ass out and vote. This ain't the election to sit home and lurk. Get your ass out and vote. Get your ass out and vote.
I mean, TikTok cool, but that vote make you woke. Pause. Drop the beat, not the ball in the fall. Yeah, this election can be a curse or a blessing. People die for these rights. 65, get your lesson. Stop. Think about why they trying to block it. If voting didn't matter, why they try so hard to stop it? They who? Don't matter. Serving change on the platter. V walk to the booth, cause your vote matter. Who vote matter? Your vote matter. Hey, vote in November or vote early.
All right, that was a nice video. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Know What the Hell You're Voting For. My name is Devon Williams, and my pronoun are he, him. I'm one of your hosts for the evening, along with my good friend, Andrea Slater. I've been a member of the LA Black Worker Center for about 4 years and joined after being a member of the Political Education Committee. Since then, I've become inspired to attend different events and realize how great it is to actually be surrounded by people who look like me. We're also fighting for Black workers' rights, which aligns with my personal morals and way of being, which is why I decided to stay as a member. And I'm sure my co-MC, Andrea, can agree.
Sorry about that. You're absolutely right, Devon. Just like Devon said, I'm Andrea Slater, and my pronouns are she, her. I actually moved to LA about 25 years ago, and like Devon, I'm a member of the Political Education Committee. Since becoming part of the Los Angeles Black Worker Center, I've also attended several events and have been more involved in the South LA community because of it. I think it's a great way to stay involved in building economic and political power for LA's Black population. So before we begin tonight's webinar, I want to discuss the importance of why we're here. We're here to build Black voter power. This event is important because we have to share knowledge, vote, and organize to shift the power. As stated, we have a powerful lineup of educated presenters to discuss these ballot measures, and I'm sure folks would like to learn more about from climate change to affordable housing and everything between. We want to stress that we are not here to tell you what to vote for, but rather provide you with the information that you can make so that you can make an informed voting decision.
Exactly. though we're providing a lot of information, we want to make sure it's as engaging and interactive as possible. Through the event, we'll have plenty of opportunities for you all to participate in the various Facebook and Zoom polls that will pop up on your screens. It's okay to have questions about what's going on in your communities, and it's our goal to help you out. We're going to kick it off with a game, which is called Black Voter Trivia, hosted by Black Worker Center member Sherry Marshall.
Okay, hey everyone. Like Devon said, we're gonna kick it off with a trivia game. Natalie, I'm excited to lead you all in the game of Black Voter Trivia. This is how the game works. We will read each trivia question out loud, and when you think you have the answers, you can type them in the chat. And when the time is up, the correct answer will be revealed. Y'all ready? Let's go. Okay. So first question.
What year? Oh.
You got what year was the 15th Amendment ratified, which granted Black men the right to vote?
So after a couple of seconds, we're going to count down and just type your answers, your guesses in the chat. I'm going to give you a couple seconds here. Okay, did anybody guess correctly?
No, no one got it. 1870.
Okay, the answer is 1870. Did anybody guess that? Oh.
No, we don't have gloves here. We don't give out gloves.
Okay, next question. Which landmark act signed into law in 1965 prohibited racial discrimination in voting? We're going to give you a couple seconds. If you know the Voting Rights Act, put it in the chat. I just realized this. We're going to give you a couple seconds here. Okay, we see some answers. Actually, it slipped up a little bit, set the answer a little bit. It was the Voting Rights Act of 1965. I see you guys got that. Okay. All right, next question. What was the name of the test that Southern states used to disenfranchise Black voters before it was outlawed? Anyone know about that? We're going to give you a couple seconds. Put your answers in the chat.
Basics reading test.
We got a couple answers coming in.
A couple answers coming in. It's a couple answers coming in.
Okay. So the answer is literacy test. Jim Crow era. Okay. The next question is, which major civil rights leader helped organize the Selma to Montgomery marches that were instrumental in passing the Voting Rights Act? So, which major civil rights leader? Anyone guess? Okay, we see some answers.
It's some answers in the chat. It's the
Okay.
majority. Everybody, it seems like everybody got it.
Okay. You guys got some education. All right.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is the answer.
All right.
Next question. All right. What was the name of the organization founded by W.E.B. Du Bois that fought for the Black suffrage in the early 20th century? Okay, it's still around today. I can give y'all a hint. We know about it today. It's still here. Okay, y'all didn't need no hint.
Okay.
Oh.
Some great educated guesses there.
Yes, and the answer is the National Association of Advancement of Colored People, so the NAACP.
Oh, shoot, I'm dark. Oh,
okay, I thought it was gonna be a tough one, but it wasn't. You know, it seemed like people got it.
Right, you guys breezed through that.
Y'all killed that trivia quiz, so I'm gonna pass it back to Devon for an audience engagement poll.
All right. Thanks, Zanaya and Sherry. So here's the next poll question that we have for y'all. What was the most interesting thing that you learned from the Black Voter Trivia? Was it the NAACP question, the Martin Luther King question? It should pop up on your screen. All right, let me see all of the above. All right. That's what's up. Okay. And yeah, there now you can insert it into the text. We get some good responses. Okay. But before I pass it back to Andrea, I want to remind everyone to stay for the full event this evening. Because at the end of the night, we will be showing you how to fill out your ballots during our virtual ballot party, and we'll also be giving away a prize. Now, Andrea, I'm gonna pass it back to you.
Thanks, Devon. Now we're going to move into the proposition portion of the evening. Just a heads up, we will not be discussing every proposition in detail tonight. However, we've still got you covered. After tonight's event, you will receive an email with a detailed proposition fact sheet. It'll go over what we talked about tonight and the ones we didn't have time to cover. So before we get started with our first proposition, I want to highlight that the Los Angeles Black Workers Center organizing coordinator, Jeremiah Gordon, he has been helping us out tonight by hopping in and is going to read any questions that you might have for our speakers about the propositions. That'll be presented, and please use the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screens to ask your questions. So next, I'd like to introduce Stanley Thermidor from New Way of Life. Stanley will be speaking about Prop 6. Stanley Thermidor is a policy and advocacy strategist with a New Way of Life reentry project. He attained his bachelor's in psychology after incarceration, working to disrupt and tear down the systems of oppression. Stanley?
Thank you, Andrea. So, most people know about the 13th Amendment, right? Which basically says slavery is prohibited and involuntary servitude is prohibited except for the punishment of crime. A lot of people don't know that actually existed in California way before that. Since 1849, which was when the California Constitution was first enacted, they actually permitted both slavery and involuntary servitude for the punishment of crime. And as a result, there was a lot of vagrancy laws that were developed. And at that time, they didn't have a lot of Black folks in California. What they had was indigenous folks, and they were subject to these vagrancy laws. They were actually subject to convicts leasing laws, which Black folks would wind up having to happen to them during the South after we were released from slavery, you know, they passed all these kinds of laws to get us into prisons and use us for free labor. And so the practice, while they may not look the same, still function the same, because in California today, involuntary servitude is still legal for the punishment of crime. So if you go to prisons, they're going to make you work. And if you don't work, there is going to be some kind of repercussion, some kind of punishment, some kind of sanction, everything from taking away your visits to keeping you working, keeping you from getting good time credits, to limiting your canteen, limiting your yard time, and other things, so that they can coerce you into working. And so, you know, one of the things about Prop 6 is so if a vote for yes on Prop 6 would mean that we would remove that, we would give autonomy back to the person who's incarcerated, removing the coercive nature of the forced labor that now exists. A no would mean that we would continue to actually practice slavery by another name. So, you know, it's up to people to be informed about the policy, about what's going on. You know, the labor in prisons, they produce a lot of things, including a lot of the desk and furniture that are actually in the state capitol. And so it's important for us to, you know, get out and vote, but also to be informed about these propositions and make the right choices. I myself, I'm going to vote yes.
Thank you, and for giving us that explanation on Prop 6. That was very informative. You should all now see a poll question on your screens. Be sure to type in your answers so that we know how we're doing here. Thank you. All righty. Okay, so next I'd like to introduce Saon Bell from Power California, who will speak more about Prop 5 and 33. Saon Bell organized with Californians for Justice for over 11 years while overseeing Oakland and Long Beach organizing. As the Senior Associate Director of Power California, she leads their policy and narrative strategy to engage and mobilize young voters of color all across California. So,
thank you, Andrea. What's up, y'all? What's up? Good to be here with all of you. I want to really underscore that housing is on the 2024 ballot. There's two propositions I want to talk about, Proposition 5 and Proposition 33. Proposition 5 is a pathway to affordable housing. It essentially makes it easier for our communities to create more housing that is affordable within our cities and our counties, right? I think what's important to understand is that right now, when we think about passing housing, in order for us to pass it at the local level, we need to get two-thirds of voters to be able to pass any sort of measure or policy to get more affordable housing within our respective communities. In particular, the California Real Estate Association and the California Apartments Association and the California Business Roundtable. These propositions are propositions that they are in opposition with and continue to fund the anti-Proposition 5 campaign. One thing that I want to note here that's super important is to take a look at, when you're looking at your ballot and you're looking at the propositions, you want to look at who is in opposition to these particular propositions. So in particular, right, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, California Business Roundtable, which I mentioned earlier, the California Realtors Association, they have been essentially using their money for the last 40, 50 years to oppress and block our folks, Black folks, from being able to get the things that we need. like housing in particular. So what Prop 5 does is that it lowers the voter threshold from 66.5% to 55%, making it easier for us to pass policies to build more affordable housing within our respective communities. And when we build more housing within our respective communities, we should see that the rents and the cost to buy homes go down. Next slide. So the second proposition that I want to talk about in terms of housing is Proposition 33, which is essentially local rent control. And this strengthens local communities' power to fight rent increases. So right now, any home that is built after 1995, I think on February 1995, is not eligible for rent protection and rent control. Right. And so this rent control policy would actually make it easier for our communities to pass rent control, not just locally, but across the state. And again, you want to look at the opposition as you're looking at your ballot, and really look at who is in opposition of the things that we really need for our communities. And you'll see here again, Proposition 33, that the realtors and the California Apartment Association, they stay blocking rent control, not just on the ballot, but they also stay blocking rent and housing, progressive housing policies within the statewide legislature.
All right, all right. Oh, thank you again, Saul. Can we get some virtual claps, some virtual hands in the chat? Next, I want to introduce our next
couple
speaker.
questions here. Jeremiah is going to help us out.
Yes, I want to go ahead and ask some questions for the folks. So we have two for Stanley and one for Saun. So Stanley, the first question is, where do these propositions show us how they will be funded in regards to the proposition you discussed?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
In your ballot, your sample ballot, it actually shows what kind of funding impact that there will be. And then you can also go online to Ballotpedia and the LAO's office, which is a state nonpartisan office, and they also tell you the fiscal impact of the statewide propositions.
Okay, thank you, Andrea. The next question is for Stanley. Will this include the incarcerated person being able to work in the industry once released?
So I'm kind of not understanding the question. Or do they mean that they'll be able to work once outside based on the work that they do inside? Because most of the work that you do inside, right, does not translate to actual work on the outside. You know, because a lot of the work that you do inside is menial. Working in the kitchen, cleaning, working on the yard crew, cleaning, unless you're going to be a gardener when you get out, or do landscaping, working in the buildings, cleaning. Most of these jobs actually does not give you or equip you with skills to get out. Same thing with a lot of the vocations. A lot of the vocations utilize outdated technologies that when you get out, you got to go back into training, because the certificate that you've received does not actually prepare you to go right away to work for a job. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, thank you, Stanley. So Saun, this question is for you. What about seniors who are on fixed incomes? Won't Prop 5 increase prop taxes and increase the risk to lose their homes?
Yeah, thank you for that. Melinda, I saw your question, appreciate it. No, right? Again, it is a rules change. So essentially what it does is it lowers the voter threshold from 66% to 55%. And so when folks are thinking about putting measures or bonds locally, right, a lot of that sort of where the money is going to come from gets decided by the folks that are putting on that local measure. But no, the answer is that this is just a structural change. It's not going to increase anyone's property taxes. The opposition is putting out that messaging to scare our folks into not voting yes for Proposition 5.
And then lastly, oh, here we go. So we do have somebody asked a question in the chat. So Shay Hill asks, will you tell us if you are voting yes or no on a prop after you explain it? Andrea, Devon, do you want to answer that?
So the whole point of this is that we are not supposed to actually sway you one way or another. We're just going to give you the information. And we can, during the ballot party, we can actually have deeper conversations, I guess would be the best way to put it.
I need to butt in for a quick moment. I think the question really is, they're asking, what does it mean if you vote yes, or what does it mean if you vote no for each of the propositions? So after the presenters are presented, the real question is, if I vote yes, what does that mean? If I vote no, what does that
okay.
mean?
I'm sorry. I was reading it like, can you tell us if you're voting yes or no? I'm sorry.
Oh, Andrew, can I hop in on this one?
Yes.
So on Prop 5, y'all, right now we can increase property taxes at any time, right? But right now, no. Right now, right, we can increase property taxes, right? When we put an initiative, like a local initiative when we put an initiative locally, we can increase property taxes, and it's not always like on our homes and communities. So let me back up. Let me give an example. So Schools and Communities First, right, was basically to increase taxes to basically tax billionaires and corporations, right? Essentially, Proposition 5 allows us to be able to pass measures that will it will tax people, tax properties, but it's gonna be like corporations and big businesses. So I know that there's a lot of confusion around this one, but essentially right now, right, if we wanted to pass a local tax measure that increases property taxes, it would require a 2/3 vote. But those property taxes are not on homes specifically. I know that's a bit confusing, but I want to also welcome in my colleagues and comrades to also chime in on this as well, because I know that there's been a lot of sort of misinformation that's been out in the streets.
For those propositions, the question is, what does it mean if you vote yes, and what does it mean if you vote no? If I vote yes, what does that mean? If I vote no, what does that mean?
So a vote yes on Prop 5 means that it lowers the threshold of our state legislators to a 55% approval rate, or even on the ballot, a 55% approval rate, as opposed to a 2/3 majority. Right now, everything that is going to have a tax attached to it requires a 2/3 majority in order to pass, which basically results in a lot of things not getting passed. And so what it does is, for housing, it reduces the threshold for housing bills down to the 55% approval rating.
So we have one more question in our Q&A. So Jasmine Davis asks, how does lowering the threshold give us more of a chance to have a say?
Lowering the threshold actually, it's very difficult. How can I start this off in a nonpartisan way? It is very difficult to get things passed with a 2/3 majority in the state, which is why it is so slow to get things done. And so by lowering the threshold, you're actually going to be allowing more of the people who are actually impacted by these policies to receive the benefits. And yes, thank you.
And then I just want to be able to come in here and say, for folks who are asking about a yes or no vote and what it means, shout out to our chat monitors. Sherry Bell just went ahead and put in there what a yes vote and a no vote means. Khalil has also been doing the same thing. So as folks are discussing the propositions and the measures, you can go ahead and go to our chat, and our folks are putting what a yes vote means or what a no vote means. Thank you.
And so, do you want me to say 33? I'm sorry.
Somebody did ask that in the chat, so yes.
Okay, so a yes on 33. Basically, right now, the rent control measures, as was explained, only address properties that are built before a certain period of time, and they do not include single-family homes or condominiums. So one of the things that the research has shown is that people, in order to get around the loopholes of the housing policies, have been buying up single-family homes in great numbers and using the laws basically to their advantage. So what Prop 33 does is remove that exemption so that single family homes are able to have the same protections. Single family home renters are able to have the same protections as people who live in high density housing.
Okay, no further questions. I'm going to pass it back to Andrea and Devon.
All right. Thank you all for the discussion, the questions, and I want to give some claps to Saun for the presentation on the propositions. Now we're going to go into another audience poll question. Let us know your thoughts on Proposition 5 and 33. It should pop up.
There we go.
All right, there you go. You should all see a pop-up on your screens currently. Give it a few seconds. Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you all for sharing your answers. Next, I want to introduce Chanel Lumiere. Born and raised in Belize City, Chanel migrated to Los Angeles, California at the age of 12. Chanel has worked in early education field, serving children and families for over 20 years, and currently serves as a multifaceted educator and organizer. Tonight, Chanel is here on behalf of Ahmad Institute, and we'll be discussing Prop 3 on marriage equality. Please welcome Chanel. All. Is she? Oh.
No, we cannot hear you.
He's in the audience.
Thank you. I was like, can you all hear me? Hi, everyone. My name is Chanel Lumiere. I'm here to talk about Prop 3. Believe it or not, in 2008, there was Prop 8 specific to California that basically says that marriage is between a man and a woman. It was defined as that, and that was passed. However, in 2015, the Marriage Equality Act was passed, which basically said that marriage can be within any gender, race, and all of that. And so because of the Supreme Court ruling in 2015, now in all 50 states, anyone, despite gender, can be married. However, because Prop 8 is technically still, because that was passed, we are now here currently in 2024 with Prop 3, and which Prop 3 really is about, essentially about changing the language from woman and man to all genders, all race, because that's what one of the issues is. So That's what Prop 3 is essentially about. Some of the pros to that is it will again change the language. Nothing will cost us Californians anything, so nothing will be changed. Again, it's just to change the language. Is there any questions around that?
No questions in the Q&A or the chat.
Okay. Thank you for explaining more detail, Manager Carly Chanel. Let's do another poll in the chat about Proposition 3. Now you all should see a pop-up on your screen that says, I feel blank about Prop 3. Give it a couple seconds.
Devon, we have one question. Chanel, somebody is asking a yes. So a yes vote means I will want to change the language.
Correct. And again, the current language states that marriage is between a man and a woman. So that's the language that we would want to change specific to California. Because even though the Supreme Court ruled, say for instance, the Supreme Court now leaves it to each state to decide what that looks like, then here in California, same-sex marriage will then become illegal.
And then also, Chanel, Robin is asking, am I understanding that Prop 3 impacts race and gender?
Give me 1 second, let me think. Not necessarily race, but more about gender identity and sexuality.
And then lastly, and this will probably be the last question, would this impact anyone's right for Medicare joining a spouse's insurance?
If at this current time, no, because again, we still will be going by what the Supreme Court has ruled. However, again, this Prop 3 is specific to California because Prop 8 was passed in 2008, stating that marriage is between a man and a woman. So again, it's really specifically about just changing the language because we still will have all the rights. But again, the language still speaks to marriages only between a man and a woman in California.
Okay, thank you. And then it seems as though we have one more question. Do we have time for that? Would it be okay? Yeah. So one more question is, do we know who opposes this bill?
Yes. 1 second. Jonathan Keeler, California Family Council, Representative Tanner DeBea, but we do know who supports it. The ACLU, Equality California, the Dolores Huerta Foundation also endorses this as well.
Okay, thank you, Chanel. I'm gonna pass it back to Andrea and Devon.
Okay, thanks for those poll answers. Want to remind everyone again about our virtual ballot party and prize giveaway at the end of the program. So if you stick around, we'll be able to fill out our ballots together and answer any further questions that you may have.
You know, actually, Andrea, I have a question. Do you need a ride to the day of voting?
No, I'm not going. All this political stuff doesn't really affect me, so I'm not going to vote.
I don't know, Andrea. Voting affects everyone, especially us as Black voters.
Well, I don't think our individual singular votes are going to do much help to change things for Black people across California, let alone the nation. I read that on Twitter.
And I understand how you feel. I think I know someone who can help. Have you met Janelle Jenkins, the co-executive director of organizing and programs?
No.
Well, in the age of social media and fake news, there's a lot of misinformation swirling around. Unfortunately, this means a lot of people feel like their singular votes don't matter. Janelle sent us a video to discuss more about what's really at stake this election, explain how we'll all be impacted if we don't use our voices collectively and individually. Let's take a look at what Janelle had to say today.
Thanks, Devon. Voting is about impacting the world in which we organize for something better. So let's be real about what voting is and what voting is not. Voting does not end hate or discrimination, and voting alone will not end the Black jobs crisis. Voting is one of the many tools in our toolbox in the fight for liberation. There's not actually a plan in place to create a care economy that uplifts Black workers and other marginalized workers in the next few years. And I'm talking about providing healthcare, childcare, housing, accessibility, elder care. Without all that in place, the chances are that the elected officials will be making decisions that impact all of us over the next few years. So what's at stake for this year's election? We're not only deciding the presidency and who has control over Congress, both the Senate and the House. We're also looking at specific offices and issues on the ballot that directly impact Black workers in LA. The other presenters make it clear that there is a lot at stake. In the next few weeks, voters will decide whether or not we want to cut hundreds of millions of dollars from safety programs that focus on mental health, drug safety, and victim services, and divert that money towards locking people up for drug possession, shoplifting, and other minor offenses. On election day, people who show up to vote will decide whether or not it's legal to force labor in jails and prisons. Huge corporations like Home Depot, 7-Eleven, Target have spent millions of dollars to make it clear that they very much want Proposition 36 to pass because they need that free labor from an overwhelmingly Black captive population. Literal slavery is on the ballot. Of course, our community of Black workers is from all over the world. And so it's important to know that voting is not the only way to impact the election. I'll hand it back to Andrea and Devon so we can learn more about how we can all get involved.
So if you need more information on how to get involved, use our action form link that's in the chat. With this link, you'll be able to stay up to date on more events like these and get involved with other Black Worker Center committees. So now back to the ballot. We are going to introduce Kevin Cosney, co-founder and associate director of the California Black Power Network, to speak a little more about Prop 36. Kevin?
Good evening, y'all. Thank you for joining us this evening for such a powerful and important conversation. As mentioned, I'm Kevin Cosney, he, him, his, associate director, co-founder of the California Black Power Network. We're a coalition of 40 Black-led and serving organizations across the state, including LA Black Worker Center, A New Way of Life, Black Women for Wellness in the chat, and many others that you can see here. But we can go ahead and skip so we can go into the good stuff. What I want to talk to you all today about is Prop 36. So what is Prop 36? Prop 36 is really an effort that would repeal key parts of Prop 47 that voters passed by about 60% vote 10 years ago. It would increase prison time for drug possession and shoplifting. It would create longer mandatory sentences, similar to those types of policies that we saw in the 80s and 90s for these low-level nonviolent offenses. And that would result in both an increase in prison spending by about $5 billion every year. The state already spends about $22 billion every year on spending for prison and jails. And this would increase that tab by $5 billion every single year to incarcerate more people for low-level and nonviolent offenses such as drug possession and shoplifting. In doing that, right, the increase in costs in incarcerating our communities would also result in cuts to funding for services like substance abuse, mental health, education programs, and victim services programs that Prop 47 was putting money into. Again, Prop 47 helped reduce penalties for these low-level crimes and put that money that was being saved into these programs that have been proven to actually reduce crime and make healthier and safer communities. So Prop 36 would roll that a lot of that back, would increase prison time for low-level offenses. This is funded and supported by the Republican Party, the District Attorneys Association, the Sheriff's Association, the Retailers Association, Howard Jarvis Association that my friend Saun talked about earlier. So some of the same folks that are fighting housing efforts are ultimately trying to create housing in prisons. It's also received major funding from companies like Walmart and most recently Philip Morris. It is opposed by folks like California for Safety and Justice, Ella Baker Center, Initiate Justice, it says ACLA, should say ACLU, Anti-Recidivism Coalition, Disability Rights California, Drug Policy Alliance, and Voters Project is all part of the opposition for Prop 36. So again, it will increase prison sentences, long mandatory sentences for low-level nonviolent crimes. It will invest about $5 billion in prisons every year, and it will eliminate about $100 million in programs for services like substance abuse, mental health, etc. Happy to answer any questions, and hopefully that's enough information to help you all make a decision here on Prop 36.
Any questions?
Yes. So, Kevin, we do have one question. So Prop 36 is coming from Jasmine Davis. So Prop 36 would take funding away from these programs that are needed in our communities and will put it into prisons and jail systems.
Jasmine, yes, thank you for that question. And the answer is yes, that is ultimately what will happen. By increasing costs in incarceration, they will be also then cutting the savings that we've made from Prop 47 that have been invested into community programs. So yes, that is a great summary.
Anything else?
There are no other questions in the chat box. So we will give folks one last moment. If not, then we'll pass it back over to you, Andrea and Devon.
Okay. Well, thank you, Kevin. That was very informative and helpful. So you all know what's going to happen next. It's time for another audience poll. Please complete the poll so that we know how we are doing here tonight. All right. Thank you, everyone, for your great answers. Now, going to play another video from Janelle, but this time they'll be speaking about Project 2025. Let's take a look.
Thanks, Andrea. Project 2025 is a comprehensive plan created by the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank that's aimed at reshaping U.S. federal government in line with far-right values if the next president is the Republican nominee. It's a 900-page detailed guide for transitioning the entire federal government to follow a conservative agenda, including policy changes in specific areas like immigration, education, and economics. Project 2025 is a conservative agenda, just like there's also an agenda for liberation. Understand that they have written a plan with funded strategies, just like people who value liberation also get together to write plans and fund our strategies, and we're all taking action to make our plans real. So let's talk about how their agenda could impact Black workers if they're able to move it. One of the main goals for Project 2025 is to reduce what they call regulation. What does that mean for us? Regulations are often the rules that keep our workplaces safe, ensure fair pay, and protect us from discrimination. Regulations usually check big companies from exploiting marginalized workers, but Project 2025 wants to make it easier for corporations to cut corners on safety, to pay us less, and to fire us without just cause. If their project is successful, we could lose many of the labor protections that we fought hard to win. Project 2025 also plans to undo some of our most important civil rights, especially our ability to protect ourselves from discrimination. They're specifically going after the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which protects people from racism at work. They want to roll back policies that promote diversity in hiring and gut programs that benefit Black workers. Their vision could strip away decades of progress towards workplace equity and equality. Black workers already face higher unemployment rates, lower wages, and systemic discrimination. If Project 2025 succeeds in reshaping economic policies in favor of the wealthy, it will widen the gap between us and the rest of the workforce. Wealth inequality will grow, and our communities will bear the brunt of these changes. If these plans are enacted, even without congressional approval, 4.3 million people could lose their overtime protections. 40 million people could have their food assistance reduced. 220,000 American jobs could be lost, and so much more. Project 2025 affects us not just as Black workers, but as whole people. You should know that while I'm talking about Black workers in this moment, there's a lot of wacky, sinister shit in this plan. That plan would unleash polluters, it could undo climate action, and a lot of us live in the places where they don't. If you want to read more about Project 2025, Andrea shared a really cool guide with me from Democracy Forward. You could just Google Democracy Forward Project 2025 and check it out yourself. The vision that they have for our country and for Black workers is dark, but I don't want you to get down and out when you're reading what their plans are for us. We need to stay educated, we need to stay informed, and we need to inform each other. We need to be ready to stick together and fight back. Our power is in our unity, in our numbers. We have always had to fight for our place in this country, and we will continue to do that. So I'll pass it back to Devon for more on how to get involved.
Thanks, Janelle. So to everyone tuning in, if you want to learn more about Project 2025 and how it may affect you, fill out our call to action sheet in the chat. You should see it like over there. So now we're going to move into our section about voting plans. I just want to quickly remind you all that we're not here to tell you what propositions to vote yes or no on, but to provide you with enough information that allows you to feel confident in your voting choices. So to help us do that, I want to reintroduce Sherry and Zanaya to discuss more on where and how to vote.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute, Zanaya. Election day is on November 5th. That's right around the corner.
Sherry, yes, it is. And you got a voting plan, right?
A what now?
A voting plan. It's a strategic plan to help you prepare yourself on the day you go and vote.
Oh, well, my family usually does it by voting in person. It's tradition. Early voting is October 26th through November 5th. I always Google search to find the nearest location, or I use a locator at the locator.lavote.gov website.
Okay, in person is great. That's a good tradition to have. But did you know you can vote by mail too? And they actually send you a confirmation once your ballot is received. But you got to make sure it's postmarked by November 5th.
That's cool. But what about folks that are not registered to vote?
Well, they better get to it because the deadline to register is October 21st.
So it sounds like I'm going in person and you're voting by mail, right? Does it matter which one I choose?
No, it don't matter which one you choose as long as you get it done by the deadline.
Period. I'll talk to you a little later. I thought I saw something about potentially raising the minimum wage to $18 an hour.
You sure did, girl. And that's Prop 32.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna read more and make sure I'm prepared to vote. And to everyone watching, tell a friend to tell a friend.
Thanks, ladies. And if you need more information on how to get involved, don't forget, use our action form link in the chat. Now let's learn a little more about what's on the statewide and local ballots.
All right, y'all. So now we're going to explain more about what's on the ballot with discussions on Measure A and Measure G. I'm going to introduce the speaker. So first, I'd like to introduce Stephen Neal to help us out. Stephen currently serves as the Outreach and Civic Engagement Director for the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor and has been a longtime advocate and community leader in Los Angeles. Please welcome Stephen to talk a little bit more about Measure A.
Good evening, everyone, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share this really important measure. So Measure A is a citizens-driven initiative, right, to really drive change and get real results in our housing sector. So it's a citizen initiative. It's going to keep what's working. We've been paying into what's called Measure H for 8 years. Well, Measure H has what's called a sunset. Within 2 years, the money that is going into homelessness and homeless services will go away if we do not replace it with this measure. Measure A would immediately replace Measure H. And what's come out of that is that you're going to take the best practices from Measure H and then enhance them. So what we've learned from Measure H is that 42 people per day are ending homelessness. And we also know that we haven't invested enough in preventing homelessness. There are over 6,400 underutilized properties, mental health beds that can be used and will be used through this. And we know that we're 500,000 housing units short in Los Angeles. So how this is going to work, it's going to expand mental health service treatment. It's going to make housing more affordable by incentives for all 88 cities in LA County to build more houses. It prevents homelessness by making sure that there are no cuts to the homeless services that are being provided now, and that preserves life-saving services. We're really looking to scale up the solution that works. And the part that is most appealing to me, it's going to mandate more accountability. And when I say accountability, I'm talking about oversight. So this initiative has not been written by politicians, but it's been written by community members, community organizations, nonprofits, and labor unions. Labor unions because it gives us as unions the ability to build more housing, which also opens up job opportunities because we have an aging workforce, and the more work that we have, the more we're going to have to hire. It's going to increase our mental health care. It's going to mandate that mental health treatment is expanded, right? That's talking about care, addiction treatment, and other critical services that are proven to be working. And it's going to require that frontline workers have increased wages and have a bargaining process. So just listening to what we've talked about, this is going to be funded by a 1/4 cent sales tax. So right now, or a 1/2 cent sales tax, which is a 1/4 cent sales tax increase over what we're paying. But the sales tax will not be on groceries, gas, medications, EBT purchases, rent, diapers, those things. But when you go to purchase a TV, you go to purchase a car, those kind of items, there will be the sale tax attached to that. And unless there are any questions, I'll be on the line to share as we go through the rest of the program.
Yeah, so Stephen, we do have 2 questions in the Q&A
Yes,
chat. So Susan asks, what incentives are provided to cities?
Well, every city has what's called the RHNA number. I served on the Long Beach City Council about a decade ago, and my entire term, we never built the amount of houses that we were required to. We're the 2nd largest city in Los Angeles County. LA does not build the amount of houses that they're required to. So I would venture to say that the other 85 cities in the county don't. So what this is going to do is cities are going to get funded to build, right? And it's going to change some of the development practices, some of the bureaucracy and how it takes building the process. It's going to lessen that which is going to help us build houses across the county.
Okay, so I have 3 more questions for you, Stephen.
Sure.
Jasmine asks, actually 4 more. Jasmine asks, what are the arguing points for Measure A?
Well, number one, if we don't replace Measure H, right, because of the way our system is working, if we don't keep the money that is in homeless services now, and this is the only initiative that will do that, then you're going to see a 30% increase in the homelessness problem that we have right now. Automatically, overnight, you're going to see cuts in programs, for instance, mental health programs, rental assistance programs. We have to address this from a different approach, and there has to be more urgency across the county. So the incentives that every city is going to get funded to build is really huge.
Okay. Robin asks, how does Measure A correlate with Proposition 1?
Actually, I think they go hand in hand, right? Homelessness is a major problem, particularly in California. And we have to take a different approach, bold approach, and make sure that we are building more. This is something that we have to build our way out of, but not only build, convert, right? Some of the things that I'm seeing in cities across the county now is that they're converting existing houses and making changes in their codes to convert old motels and things like that. There are all kinds of things that haven't been done on a broad scale that it will give incentives to cities to invest in, and that is going to increase our housing stock. The other thing is the low-income housing that we have now, they come with these things called covenants, right? So I may have a low-income housing project or housing unit, and it may have a 50-year covenant on it. Once those 50 years are up, then those houses generally go to market rate, whatever the rate is. So it eliminates that. So that will no longer be included as well. The covenants, everyone that builds low-income housing, it will be low income until that thing is torn down, or as long as it exists, it will remain a low-income housing unit.
Okay. Thank you. We have a few more questions, Stephen. So Sherry asks, is this a new sales tax?
It's not a new sales tax. It's replacing a sales tax that we're already paying. It's going to increase it, but it comes to an increase of 4 cents for every $4. Or the best way to put it is, if you're a low income family, it's going to cost you about $2.50 a month. For an average income, it'll be about $5 a month.
Okay. And then we have 2 more questions. Dr. Lydia asks, how are the homeless transition into affordable housing?
Well,
so how are the people? Yeah.
The way the system is working now is we're moving people into these housing units, and there are models that are existing right now where they have like what are called wraparound services in there, because many of our homeless, not all, but there are a large number of folks that have mental health challenges. So it's going to expand mental health, and people are transitioned. Every city is a little bit different. Mayor Bass is working on a plan to transition folks into housing. The city of Long Beach and probably the other major cities in the county. But each city is going to develop their own plan, but with the accountability standards, if they're receiving money from this Measure A fund, and the oversight agency is going to be made up of community members, nonprofit organizations. There will be some elected officials on there as well. But if they're not meeting the criteria that has been set, that money is going to be clawed back and given to those organizations that are actually doing the work and proving it, because there's going to be stricter criteria and guidelines that are going to be monitored, where we don't have that in existence now.
Okay. Also, Dr. Lydia has one more question. Since there is a process to gain entry into a union, how are the homeless and unemployed benefited by the union currently?
Well, for one, it's going to give us, as I mentioned earlier, our building trade. So every city is going to have to build what's called a project labor agreement. And a project labor agreement is basically a contract. It's going to say when you go into this contract with a project labor agreement, what it's going to tell you the exact price. There are no overruns. And it doesn't have to be built by unions, but whatever developer that does it will have to pay union scale. Our union workers make higher wages, but it's going to give us the opportunity in our building trade unions to have to hire, because we have an aging workforce. And if there's more work, that means that our labor unions are going to have to hire. It also affects our municipal workers, our city workers, because as we start building, that's going to affect jobs within the city and the county, code enforcement, all those city departments that deal with building and construction and regulatory. They're going to have to scale up as well. So we're working with our city partners, our county partners, and basically trying to hold them accountable to meet their hiring goals, because it is going to increase the amount of people that need to go to work.
Okay. Robin has a question for you. And I know some people have their hands raised. If you do have a question, please put it in the chat. So Robin asks, what are some of the positives of Proposition H that Measure A proposes to expound on Measure A? Let me repeat it. What are some of the positives of Prop H that Measure A proposes to expound on if Measure A passes?
The positives are the one around services. The Measure H it doesn't do anything around mental health. It doesn't do anything around eviction prevention. All of those things have been added, right? One of the big problems is homelessness is to keep people housed before they get homeless. So this provides provisions in that sense that Measure H doesn't have. Measure H has housed over 150,000 people over the last 8 years. So you've taken the best practices of that and then added the service portion. And that's why there's so many service organizations and folks that are doing work in this space that are in support of this. It's going to make sure that they are getting funded.
Okay. That is it for the Q&A section. Thank you, Stephen.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Steve. That was a lot of really good information. So we're going to ask you to do another poll and let us know your thoughts on Measure A. So it should be appearing in a few seconds.
Let me look through the chat. I see Stephen getting a lot of praise.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Okay. So I don't see any more questions. No more questions. All right. So now we're gonna move into the last bit of information to explain what's going on the ballot. So I'd like to introduce everyone to Derek Steele. Derek is the executive director of the Social Justice Learning Institute. They're located in Inglewood. I go there regularly. Under his leadership, his team taught over 15,000 families in nutrition, physical activity, and urban agriculture. They have built 126 urban gardens in the community, as well as started the Inglewood Farmers Market and Inglewood Community Supported Agricultural Program, and significantly influenced the passing of 2 major state bills impacting food insecurity in the great state of California. tonight, Derek is here to help us talk a little bit more about Measure G. Let's all welcome Derek Steele.
What's up, y'all? How y'all doing? It's good to be in space with you. Thank you very much for that introduction. I wasn't expecting that. I am Derek Steele, Executive Director of Social Justice Learning Institute, but I'm also here on behalf of the Black Experience Action Team that many of my peers and friends on the call are a part of. We got Bold Black LA that's popping off too. You've probably seen the video and some of the work that we're doing around that. But I'm here specifically about Measure G. Okay, so I'll try to stay above the fray in the middle to give you the information. First and foremost, this is the measure about governance reform for all of LA County. Okay, it was brought forth by the Board of Supervisors, put on the ballot, and it was done in very short order. They rushed it through 3 weeks, but I'll digress. What it does is it creates an elected county executive, where right now the CEO of LA County is currently an appointed position, but this will make it an elected position. It creates an independent ethics commission to increase restrictions on lobbying and investigate misconduct. Establishes a nonpartisan legislative analyst to review proposed county policies, and increases the Board of Supervisors from 5 to 9 elected members, which is partly one of the most popular parts of this measure that everybody's talking about. It's inspiring people to make moves one way or the other on it. It requires the county departments to present annual budgets to public meetings and also uses existing funding sources or no additional taxes to implement. Just a little bit about the County Board of Supervisors. Most folks don't know, but they oversee about 10 million residents. And that means that each supervisor now has a constituency of about 2 million people. That's a lot of people to actually be representing. And I think in a greater sense, all of us who are on this call, we probably know that there needs to be reform. I think we're all on the same page as far as that is concerned. The supervisors handle many responsibilities, including setting policy for public health, social services, jails, and transportation. And that's all amazing work. The 5 supervisors that we have are probably one of the most powerful supervisors in all of the country. And yes, reform needs to be happening, but it matters how you do the reform, right? As I mentioned, this was done very quickly. It was done yes, in public setting as far as the meeting is concerned, but I would ask for you to ask, how many different people do you know that were even knew about Measure G even being on the ballot in the first place? Were you included in the conversation about how many seats needed to be for representation, right? What I can tell you the truth about this, and this is just telling you the facts, I'm not trying to shade the color one way or the other, but there was no geographical data that was tagged to this. When they were asked, how did you get to 9? It was actually done by polling. It wasn't done by coming to community and having community conversation about, how they felt about the measure one way or the other. It did not include a democratic process. This was unilaterally, we are going to throw everything at the wall and we're going to see what sticks. And that's not the way to do really good policy, in my opinion. But it's not about my opinion. I just want to make sure that you understand the facts. So Measure G will have all these elements that are a part of it. And at the end of the day, if people say yes to it, you're saying yes to all these different elements and the work that is going to have to be done to actually implement it. This work actually wouldn't get started until 2030. There's a lot of questions around how much it would also cost. The people who are for it say that it won't cost anything because there's no new taxes on it. The people who are against it also acknowledge, and I should also mention that the county budget office is also stating that it is going to actually cost for there to be, and this is on the ballot too, when you read through it, it's actually going to cost for there to actually make the changes. And the money that is going to be paid to even make this work happen is going to come out of NCC. And if anybody knows anything about the County of Los Angeles, Measure J, CFCI, was a part of the movement that folks ushered in to make sure that there was direct community and alternatives incarceration. Measure J gets dollars out of NCC funds as well. So it's going to take money from ongoing programs like Measure J in order to pay for this thing that didn't have your input, didn't have any facilitation. And to be honest, it has the potential to usher in Black political erasure. And that's one of the main reasons why Supervisor Holly Mitchell, Supervisor Barger have come out on against this. They are the opponents of this officially. The folks who are for it will also say, oh, but these are special interests and everybody who's against it. No, there are regular community-based organizations that are against it as well. But also Supervisor Horvath and also Supervisor Solis and Han are also proponents of this as well. So there's a mixed bag. Even when they voted to put it on the ballot, it passed 3-2. So it wasn't a unilateral decision. And we're bringing it to the people to say, ask yourself the question of if you were included and if this was done correctly. The last thing I will say is that even if it does not pass, I told you what will happen if it does pass. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't mean a reform won't happen, because last year there was a measure that had all 5 votes. I'm sorry, a motion that had all 5 votes that said we want to study what reform will look like. And the Anti-Racism, Diversity, and Inclusion Office will be the responsible party to actually do that study. And that work is ongoing as we speak. So it's not that reform will never take place if we don't pass this thing. It actually is, we will do it in a more effective way and an inclusive way if this doesn't pass as well. Any questions?
Yes, we
Can I
do
add one
have.
point? I'm sorry. Can I add one quick point that
Please
this
do.
expansion has become an issue now that there's an all-women supervisor board right now, and that is something to really pay attention to, because we actually saw similar policies happen at the state legislature level when more women and people of color were entering into office. They started really changing up the game, basically.
Moving the goalposts. And you're especially, you're really spot on with that. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I should also note that, you know, the number 9 was arbitrary. There was no rhyme or reason how they selected it. What if we need 12? What if we need 15? No analysis was done in order for us to really determine what the appropriate amount of seats actually will be. But you're actually spot on. They're always going to continue to move the goalposts when we actually have our folks starting to get in there and actually be a part of the process.
Okay, Derek, we do have a few questions for you. I'm gonna start off with the chat questions because they came first. So Jeanette asks, does Measure G dilute Black political power?
In essence, the way that this has been looked upon, when you look at the way that the political lines are structured right now with the 5 seats, and also from I'm sorry, how the lines have been drawn since 2020, and we're actually coming up on redistricting again in 2030, so it's something to pay attention to. The mapping, when you look at the voter capacity that we have throughout LA County, if you expand the amount of seats, the greater amount of populace that we have in District 2 right now gets dispersed across the lines depending on how they're drawn. Right. And so it has the ability to actually dilute the political power of Black folks in LA County, mainly because the voting population of folks throughout the county shifts along with the things that are already happening with folks in the county as is. Right. We already have displacement. We already are moving around the county as well. So the analysis on how to make sure we're maintaining from a racial equity standpoint, solidarity, and making sure that the things that folks need all throughout county need to be a part of this process. One of the reasons why this one being rushed the way it is makes it really difficult to actually get on.
Shay Hill asks.
I'm looking at the chat. Someone else.
Yeah. I got you. Don't even trip. Shay Hill asks, who supports Measure G and who
So the supporters of Measure G, as far as the what is on the ballot, the supporters are Supervisor Horvath, Supervisor Hahn, Supervisor Solis, along with a couple professors from a couple different institutions. The opponents of it is the fire union. Even this is how you know it's weird. This is strange bedfellows. You got Supervisor Mitchell, Supervisor Barger. You also have the fire department and also the sheriff's union, right? Ain't that wild? And the Community Coalition, Social Justice Learning Institute, the LA CAN. There's a whole bunch of organizations who actually are officially on the ballot's content as opponents of this measure as well. Strange bedfellows, though. That's what happens when you have trash legislation like this. That's Derek's opinion. That is not everyone. That's just me. Sorry.
Asking, will it cost more money to have 9 instead of 5? Salaries will have to be paid.
Yes, salaries will have to be paid, and there would be a cost to making the change and making the shift. Here's the other thing that is also not noted in this: if you actually have a CEO elected as an elected official, you know, even if you have the expansion of the seats and representation, the board of supervisors then becomes more of like an advisory council than it does have the teeth that it has right now, right? Think about what happened when the sheriff, when everybody was opposed to the sheriff, but there was nothing anybody can do about it because the sheriff is an elected official. Could you imagine someone who has enough money to be able to raise, you know, to raise and actually run to get that seat, and sitting in it, and they don't actually have the same values as us? The work is already hard as is the way the county does its work. But then if you have also an elected county CEO who may not have the skills, who may not have the acumen, who may not have the ideals that many of us believe in as well from a progressive standpoint, this could actually set the county back from all the successes that we've had over time, several years, if not decades. Caruso is a perfect example. Could you imagine?
Appreciate that. Okay, Derek, I'm gonna go ahead and go to the Q&A box now. Don and
Fantastic.
Melissa, I'm gonna combine your questions because it's essentially the same question. So the question for you, Derek, is how might Measure G impact or dilute Black representation?
So again, as I was stating earlier, you know, Black representation in LA County we're in a moment of shifting as we speak, right? When you start to look at the ballot now with the different folks who are running for the city, for the several folks who are running in several cities across the county. But right now, if you expand the amount of seats from 5 to 9, which again is not a bad thing, right? The idea of making sure that there's more representation for those who are underrepresented, who don't see themselves on the board, totally understand that. We should have a more governed way to go about solving that problem. But in the arbitrary way that it is happening right now by way of Measure G, it has the potential, based on some of the preliminary mapping that we have done, based off of the redistricting mapping that we did in 2020, and also seeing the patterns change as far as our voting capacity in several parts of the county. It's going to begin to erase the ability for us to have strong enough groupings of Black folks and Black voters to even have representation on any seat of the 9, right? So when we did the mapping and we started doing the redistricting in the first place, because it does have the independent council, and we had the ability to work in solidarity with our partners from different walks of life as far as communities of color is concerned, we were having these discussions about how to actually draw the lines effectively. There should be a very thoughtful process for us all to be engaged in this movement, so that we can make sure that everybody can have fair representation, and also things that is on par for the needs of folks in our communities. As we know, Black folks are at the top of the list we don't be at the top of, bottom of the list of things we don't be at the bottom of. And it's important that we have representation so that we can make sure that our needs can be addressed.
Cool. So I got two more questions. So Jasmine Davis asks, so Measure G would hold these departments and folks accountable, or did I miss that?
Measure G right now, if Measure G doesn't pass, the status quo of the county and how it works right now would be the law then. And the Ethics Commission has already been approved. That is something that already exists, right? So being able to make sure that people who need to be held accountable because they're doing wrong or have wrongdoing that they're participating in, there is already the function of an ethics committee that was already voted on back in August of this year, right? So the accountability factors are things that can happen right now. We don't have to wait for the passing of Measure G to bring something like that about. But there are a whole bunch of other, and I would hope, unintended consequences that come if we just go blindly and say yes to Measure G. But there are also some value add. It just means that if it does pass, we're going to have to do the work on the other side to make sure our voices and the needs of our folks are included, our workers, those who are returning back because of the work that is happening from Prop 47 and beyond. You know, the work that Measure J is doing and the alternatives, like there's a lot of needs that we have in communities that can be addressed if we have to actively engage in that process. So if it passes, the work is not done just because it passed. Like, we got to be really diligent on that end. But we can also get in front of this to make sure there's a process that's done more effectively if it doesn't pass.
Okay, I got one 2-part question and then one go ahead, Derek.
I just do also want to add to this, like, most of the things that you're seeing about Measure G, you're seeing a lot of positive energy behind it, right? You're seeing a lot of, I think the Democratic Party voted to get behind it. You've seen a good amount of endorsements that have come behind it as well. And that's because the proponents, mainly Supervisor Horvath, is using all of her political capital to try to make this work. This is her first piece of major legislation that she's trying to push forward to make a splash in her tenure as chair of the Board of Supervisors. But I also should mention that it's doing a lot of damage to the solidarity efforts that have been taking place since 2020 and beyond, because they have organized many of the other communities of color around this. Black folks were not included in this conversation at all. Not at all. The main Supervisor Holly Mitchell didn't even know about it until they brought it up in session. That's how much, like, why are we doing this underhanded type of work? Like, this is not the way to kind of do business. So I know there is a lot of confusion around, like, I thought this was a good thing. I thought everybody was behind it. Yeah, but when you really start to lift the cover up and start to ask some questions, you start to see that, oh, this ain't what I thought it was, you know? So.
Okay. I have one more question, Derek. It's a Facebook question. So somebody on Facebook is asking, where is the data coming from and how does this connect to Black erasure?
So there are a lot of organizations that did work when we were doing the redistricting out of the census work in 2020. Many folks may not be aware of this, but, like, you know, every 10 years we have the census, and also the lines get redrawn as to what the makeup of the voting districts actually are, from the assemblies to the Senate on the state side, all the way down to the county districts, to even in your city, you know, what are the lines actually drawn up in as far as the different districts in the city too. And so the work that was done there for the mapping a lot of the preliminary understanding of where voters are by demographic that they represent was done very astutely. I got to lift up my friends over at Community Coalition because they helped to lead a lot of these efforts. California Black Power Network was hugely involved with a lot of this process, not only just here in LA, but also across the state of California. And so looking at those maps and also tracking what voter the voting trends have looked like, even out of the last election cycle, you know, for the midterms, like all of this has been a part of the nature for us to be able to look at what it is. I'll say that the people who are proponents of this did not do mapping. They did polling. They did a poll with a set of people to say, if we put governance reform on the ballot, would you vote for it? Like, are you for it or against it? If we say 9 seats, do you like that or do you not like that? There was no breakdown and understanding of like what it needs to be. And so when organizations like ours started to find out what was going on, we went back to see, like, if we went to 9 seats, what does it look like? And then you start to see the trends of how the different ways that this can go. Where there is no official mapping of this, because the mapping never really got done officially. So we don't even know how they would draw up the 9 seats and what it would look like. But you can do some of the scenarios that it could be, to understand that in any of those scenarios, the opportunities for Black seats actually diminish over time. Hopefully that looking at it from a long arc answers the question that you're asking.
Yeah. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate you, brother. There are no further questions, so thank you, Derek. I'm gonna go ahead and pass it back to Andrea and Devon so they can go ahead and go into our next part of the agenda.
Thanks for the time, y'all. Y'all have a good one.
Thank you. That was very helpful. And as you probably have guessed, we have another poll about Measure G. This is our last poll for the evening. So definitely submit and let us know your thoughts. It should be popping up any moment.
Okay. I don't see any more. No questions? No?
Okay.
All right. So we'll transition to our next section then. So now we'd like to formally recognize a post-founding member of the LA Black Worker Center, Miss Ethel Jackson. She was essential in starting this event back in 2018. Here to recognize her is LA Black Worker Center Senior Campaigns Coordinator, Trina Traylor, and longtime advocate and political education committee member, Ted Booker. Give them a round of applause.
Yay.
Thank you, Devon. Hello, everyone. I'm excited today to celebrate a remarkable individual whose unwavering dedication has helped transform the lives of so many in our community. This person is more than an advocate. They are a beacon of hope, resilience, and progress, deeply committed to the civic and economic empowerment of the Black community. Ethel Jackson, better known to us as Sister, works tirelessly to make sure that the voices of underrepresented populations in the Black community disproportionately impacted by structural racism and discrimination are represented. For years, Ethel has been on the front lines working to address systemic inequalities and advocating for policies that uplift and protect our people. She has organized voter registration drives, encouraged political engagement, and ensured that our voices are heard in the corridors of power. She is the brainchild behind starting the Political Education Committee because she understands that civic participation is not just a right, but a necessity in the fight for justice and equality. Ethel understands that true empowerment comes when communities have the tools and resources to build generational wealth and create opportunities for future success. For that, we say, thank you, sister, for your commitment to the Black community.
Yeah, back in 2018, Ethel reached out to me and said she wanted to put together a voter education event to ensure folks in the community knew what the hell they were voting for. She was concerned that folks were confused with all the ads and wanted to create a space to give the community clarity about the propositions that directly affect our community. It's member leaders like Ethel who are instrumental in creating change in our community. So thanks, Ethel Jackson, for your commitment to Black workers and to our community. Can y'all please show some love for Ethel in the chat?
I'm gonna put my emoji up in there. All right. We see y'all. We appreciate y'all. We just want to thank everyone for participating tonight. Remember that every single one of these props, laws, and measures impact Black workers and our community. So it's very important that you vote. Now we're going to transition to the ballot party section.
All right, we invite you to get your ballots so that we can help you fill them out. Wasn't this an amazing lineup on Black voting power? Let's give it up to everyone who was involved in making this event special, both in front of and behind the scenes. Now it's time to show up to the polls and make your votes count. Don't leave yet. Now it's time for the ballot party and the prize giveaway. If you have your ballots in front of you, please fill them out using the information that you learned tonight. Also, feel free to drop any questions you might have into the chat.
I guess I'll announce it then. We would like to congratulate our today's winner. It is Tori Bailey. You won a $25 gift card.
Tori won the dog.
So he's gonna take the gift card. All right. Start closing off then. Sorry, everyone. You've been hearing from us all night long, but now we want to hear from you. If you could use one word to describe tonight's event, what would it be? Please answer in the chat. And also, if you'd like to be a part of this exciting work that we do at the LA Black Workers Center, we encourage you to click on the link in the chat and become a member. Not only will you have access to the Black Workers Center community, but you can also help with impactful events such as this and help to fight in the Black jobs crisis. Thank you all very much. I'm Pastor Andrea.
We're so glad that everyone enjoyed tonight's event. And again, on behalf of myself and Devon, the Los Angeles Black Worker Center, tonight's speakers, community members, and allies, we want to thank you for joining us. We hope you are all feeling more informed than you did before tonight's event, and that you'll show up at the polls knowing exactly what the hell you're voting for. Have a good night.
And like his promise is true, only my faith can undo the many